Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 5 in the rebuild of the basket case Camaro, the 68 that I bought back in 2014. So there are 4 other videos, 2 of those are from 2014, really didn't get much done on that. And then the next 2, which is an overview and a partial teardown of the car. So when I left off in that last video, I was showing the pieces that I had removed and my thoughts on the process moving forward. So I'm going to cover some of that again, just if there's any new viewers, so they get an idea of what's going on. And my understanding is this car was a rollover. That's what I was told. It could have been that a tree fell on it. I don't know for sure. So let me show you what I'm doing and what my next steps are in the process. So as I said, there was damage to the A-pillar, either from a rollover or a tree falling on it. And I'm going to be replacing the bulk of the side of the car with this replacement panel that I bought several years ago as well. So I've already taken a plasma cutter and removed a good deal of this. I still have to remove this bracket here, which is the mount point for the upper hinge, and this one here, which is the mount point for the lower hinge, along with the rest of the A-pillar and the outer rocker panel. Now, some people were asking me in the last video why I wasn't just replacing the whole thing. So if you look at this, it has this panel down here on the bottom. That goes all the way underneath the airbox and to the outside of what would be the forward mount point for the subframe. And I don't want to take all of that apart. In order for this to get inside of that opening, I would probably have to remove some other panels here, probably open up this chamber, and I don't want to do that. And so I'm trying to avoid that. The easiest way that I see is to remove this outer or inner panel right here, leaving the bracket for the door hinges mounted to the inside of the A-pillar. You can see it's welded right here. So those I will leave, but I'll remove these skin pieces. Also, I will remove the inner rocker panel from this piece. So in the process, I have a lot of spot welds to break loose. This flange I started to get loose, so I'll have to take all these out. Again, this lower section, all these spot welds are along here for the outer rocker panel. And then in the back, I'm going to leave the inner wheelhouse and remove the flange that I cut off from the inner structure and the outer wheelhouse as well. And then some pieces up here that are part of that inner structure. To do that, I'm going to use a variety of tools. So I've got little cutoff wheels, sanding discs, a belt sander. I have a diamond cutting wheel from Bad Dog Tools I'll use on my grinder. And of course hammers and this panel spot weld buster, screwdriver, variety of things like that. I want to point something out too. When you're doing stuff like this, this is just a little tip. Pay attention to little things like this. This is a retainer for the wire bundle that would normally go to the back of the car, and I could easily destroy that taking this apart and forget about it. Now, is it truly necessary? Maybe not. However, I'm going to drill out that little spot weld and save this piece, and also this one back here. I've also indexed where they went with these Sharpie marks. They're going to be left on the inner rocker panel. So this is just part of the process. Now, a lot of this I will do in time lapse. I don't want to tie up regular video filming all this, so you'll see a lot of this in time lapse, and hopefully everything goes smooth and I can get this get the outer panel taken apart as well. Alright, so I said I'm doing most of this time lapse, but I do want to stop and show you some details. And I'm making good progress, at least I think I am. I have removed the upper bracket there, the lower bracket there, and the outer rocker panel, at least the upper half of it. So let me show you some of that. This is the upper bracket that I talked about. This is the lower one. I was surprised. I tried to cut this edge here, and it actually just the welds pop loose. So there wasn't really anything holding it. This front piece, which went right there, I cut it off. Same thing. It just kind of popped off whenever I put some pressure on it. The forward section of this, which I cut off, is still attached. And then this is the lower flange. So I cut it off, and I was again surprised. There's almost nothing holding that on. There's one spot weld. So if I wiggle that, it shows maybe 2 spot welds were actually holding that on to that part. Down here, very similar. There's only like 1, maybe 2 spot welds. So again, these pieces are staying in place. Down here, and I'll show you more about this. This is what's left of the A-pillar, and then this inner flange right here. I think that's part of the rocker panel. Yeah, I think it's part of the rocker panel. And I'll show you, we'll get into this more as I separate the new part. Over here, I have separated the flange, and I wanted to show you this because the the weld pattern, not that critical, I guess, but you can see where they're spaced, roughly 2.5, maybe 3 inches, depending. But here, that's one that missed, and it's just metal that's hanging on right now. Right below it, I did drill that and make a new hole. There were 2 here. Again, this is not really critical, but I'm just pointing this out, that sometimes when they're putting these together, they would miss, and they wouldn't even make a weld. More on this area back here. I thought, when I was initially separating this, that I could leave this piece that was in this corner. However, that is part of the outer rocker. So basically this is what's left of it. That piece would have been spot welded onto the bottom half of the outer rocker, and then spot welded to the upper half. Well, if I separated the upper half off and separated the lower half, this piece would be left behind and really wouldn't do anything. And it's already in the new piece. So I'm going to separate this little piece that is attached to the inner wheelhouse, and that'll take care of that. I'll drill holes through it so I can weld it from the back side. And of course, the outer wheelhouse has to come off, what's left of that. Let me show you what's going on with the front section so you have some idea. Okay, so this is the lower half of the A-pillar, and there is the mount hole for the fender. If I set this on right here, you can see this is what's left of the front section of the outer rocker panel, and then of course it goes up inside and creates the box up on top. So taking that out of the way, you can see the new outer rocker and how the A-pillar interacts. The rocker panel tucks up inside, so if you flip that over, you can see those 2 flanges. And then of course up front here is where it mates to the that air box. So this should really just be a matter of cutting off what's left of this down here and this little piece on the front. And then there's that inner brace that you can see there, where that square is. And I have to determine if that's part of that lower section or if it's independent. Right now I feel like it's part of that lower section. So moving closer to this one, I think this is all one piece. So once I take this flange out of the way, I'll be able to make sure, but I'm pretty confident that's all one piece. So this piece may end up staying in here, and then the assembly go around it. So I'll have to separate the rest of that rocker off underneath. But that's fine. That can stay. That's good. So that's where I'm at right now, and I feel like I'm making some good progress. So I will continue on separating again the lower flange and the rest of this and those little pieces up front there. And we'll see how it goes. I'll just continue doing time lapse and step in whenever I want to show you some details. Okay, so let me give you some updates. I have all of the excess material removed from the front here, the outer rocker panel, all that's been removed, and I've blended down the welds. I also have holes drilled through this section because I will be welding from the inside when I get the new piece in place, and there's still a couple little things I need to fix, some minor holes I need to weld shut. This section here, everything is off, and I have one little piece back here to remove, but it's going to come off fairly easily, I think. Now let me show you what's going on with the wheelhouse. And this is, I was concerned about this because I knew with the Mustang experience that these wheelhouses have kind of a rolled bead weld. And what I mean is it's like run through a roller wheel and electrically welded together. And when I removed the piece that was on the outside here, it had spot welds. Now what I wanted to do was hopefully remove those spot welds and be able to see a whole bunch more spot welds, but what I ran into was again that bead roll. So I've been using the sanding disc and just thinning down the metal and then peeling it off. Ideally you could probably leave that piece. You know, if I actually cut off the rest of this wheelhouse and blended it flush, we're only talking the thickness of this sheet metal. And that's not going to really matter in the grand scheme of things. However, I want to get everything out of the way so it doesn't cause a problem, and I'll work on getting these off pretty soon. But right now I've been sanding down this material here, and then I've been grabbing it with a pair of vice grips and kind of twisting it off. So like there you can see this was the lower section here, and I twisted it off and then sanded it smooth. I will end up drilling some holes into this because I need to weld the wheelhouses together. So I will go from the inside and weld this, because when I take this apart I am removing the welds from the inside and I don't need to go through the outside of the material. It just makes more sense to back weld into it. So there will be holes here all along that edge. So here's where we stand right now. All of the excess metal is removed from the front, everything from the rocker panel around the wheelhouse. I got that little piece out of the way, the little square piece that was there. I finished cleaning up the edge for the wheelhouse, and I also removed the piece that was back here that was the edge of the quarter panel, the drip rail piece or whatever you want to call it, rain gutter. I removed that as well. The reason for that is I need to test fit the quarter panel while I'm doing all this work, and this would be in the way. Along with all that, I removed the lower half of the outer wheelhouse, so that's taken care of. And there was this piece, which was the remainder of the quarter panel, where it met the tail panel. So all that's out of the way so that I can be able to test fit all those pieces. The tail panel will be coming off later. I'm not going to be able to use this one, it's too damaged. But I want to save this one, maybe turn it into wall art. Now, next up, and I'm going to try to get as much of this done as I can. A lot of this again will be on time lapse. I'm going to separate the welds on the inner wheelhouse. Up here, combination of things. This inner rocker panel has to come out, and again what I'm going to do is I have holes drilled for the upper flange, and the bottom flange is solid. I don't have any holes in that at all. The reason for that is it's going to be easier to weld if I take these holes, or these spot welds, and just drill these through. Just drill them out, and that'll create a hole in the new outer rocker panel. So that'll give me something to weld through to that the inner flange down there. Up here, I have to break the spot welds up here off of this piece, and this could go either way. Where these are, I may just drill them. I don't know yet, but this piece is all part of that inner, so it'll go away. Now the inner flange, I want to break the welds loose from this side and not drill all the way through, again because I already have the holes in the upper. So this is probably going to be mostly time lapse doing all this stuff, and I'll go over it as I continue on if I find something that needs to be pointed out. This upper piece, I'm going to separate the welds here where it's attached to the inner hinge mount, and separate these welds up here and then the ones on the underside of this, because I already have the holes inside for those to get welded back to. So stay tuned here. I'm just going to set up the camera on time lapse and try to see what I can get done. Okay, this is the first try to see if this panel is going to fit the car. And I have an assistant again. Roger is here to help.
Hey, gang.
So we're going to try this. I have not tried it yet. Hopefully it lines up and fits. But we'll find out, and you'll find out too. Hopefully, we'll find out. Oh, just set it down for a second. Just realized there was a stray drill bit. Okay. Hold on a second, wait. I'm fighting the back tire. So you saw in the video segment, it didn't just pop into place, and I did not expect it to. I knew there was going to be some fitment issues. Part of it is the angle of this plate right here. It should be slightly higher so that it clears the inner, and that's what it's hitting right there. So that's part of the problem. Down here, if I can get the camera angle right, this piece right here, these are hitting these little flanges, so they need to be reshaped. Up inside, a little bit of a gap right now because it's not fully together, but it'll come. Just has to be massaged, you know. Back in the back, I did clamp the wheelhouse to that filler piece, and also up here, and it interacts fairly well with the panel. Sorry, with this panel up here, and also I set the roof structure pieces on top just to see how close they line up, and they're relatively close. And of course, this is just, you know, mocking it up. Now I will need to set the roof panel on later and adjust as necessary to make sure everything is going to fit, but it looks pretty good. Well, it's coming together. As I said before, test fit, test fit, test fit. You know, it's not like the TV shows where they show you a car and they show you a couple people working on it, and then the next thing you know, it's painted. This is a reality. Sometimes you have to work with the pieces, massage them, make them fit, and that's what's going to have to happen in this case. But I'm pretty happy with where it's at right now. I drilled out about 200 spot welds on that panel alone, not counting the rest of the car, to get those secondary pieces off, and that's time. You know, it's just time, and of course patience. Everybody says I have a lot of patience. Well, this proves proves the case. But you know, there's still more to do. I will be test fitting the roof skin later on, the quarter panels, all that sort of thing. I want to make sure everything is going to line up before I do any welding. That's how I do things. But again, that'll be the end of this video. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. By all means, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about this video. And I look forward to sharing a new segment with you very soon. But until next time, take care of yourselves. See you.